Say hello to the Lotus Eletre, the company's first ever SUV and probably the largest and also heaviest car it will ever make. Now, the Lotus brand hits a little bit closer to home because it used to be under the stewardship of Proton, and as a result of that, made some really nice handling cars because of technology transfer and what have you. But the point is, there used to be whispers of a Lotus SUV nearly 20 years ago, and that is the Lotus APX. Yeah, not quite a sight for sore eyes, but the APX was more proof of concept, and Lotus didn't really intend on making it at the time. But here we are in 2023 with the Eletre, dubbed the world's first production full electric hyper SUV. Its arrival is a tale all too similar to the Porsche Cayenne, which is the brand's first SUV and one that quickly and very successfully steered a dedicated sports car maker away from bankruptcy and into major financial success. But the question to ask is, can the Eletre springboard Lotus into mainstream appeal? Well, that's what we're here in rainy Norway, the EV capital of the world, to find out.
First of all, the Eletre is a gargantuan of an SUV. At over 5 meters long, it is by far the largest car Lotus has ever made and is bigger in every dimension when compared to the Porsche Cayenne. Styling-wise, it is exceptionally brilliant from a functional point of view because despite its seemingly minimalistic shell, there's quite a bit of aerodynamic work going on. There are vents on the front bumper, on the bonnet, as well as the front and rear wheel arches to guide air and provide active cooling. Plus, a pretty special split roof spoiler and an active rear wing for extra downforce at higher speeds. I like that the headlights are hidden at the corners of the bumper right under the LED daytime running lights, so the Eletre looks extra distinct during the day. The slim claddings and huge 22-inch wheels also give it a pretty menacing stance, while the LED light strip at the back can function as a battery charge indicator as well, which is a small but very thoughtful feature to have on an EV. The short overhangs really emphasize the length of the wheelbase, which spans over 3 meters long and accommodates a 112 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which is currently one of the largest units on the market. But perhaps my most favorite feature, at least visually, is the active front grille that is comprised of 7 individual apertures, each featuring 6 triangular petals. These petals open and close seemingly at random and can be quite therapeutic to observe. How absurdly gorgeous.
Now, the cabin of the Eletre is a really nice place to be. Everything here feels really premium, starting with this 8-pointed steering wheel. It's sort of an octagonal steering wheel with a flat bottom base here, and you have carbon fiber weave everywhere. Really nice looking thing. The key touch points are really luxurious to the touch. You have this Alcantara-like lining, and you have a total of 7 displays, including the digital side mirrors. Now, of the 7 displays, the main one is this centerpiece, a 15.1-inch 16:10 aspect ratio OLED display. The graphics is just out of this world. I've never seen anything like this, and it's really, really nice. So it's about 60 frames per second, and you have this 3D rendering of the car, so you can press the car and then tap on the electrochromic sunroof, which is a really nice piece to have if you want to impress your friends. And you can change between 10 different levels of opacity, so you can either black out the sky, well, not really black out the sky, but you know, have a nice curtain to not see the sky, and have it completely transparent, but also with a bit of tint so it doesn't burn the passengers. I think this display is just wonderful, and this is built over Android Automotive OS, but everything else you see here is proprietary Lotus. Even the apps that you can download are, you know, compatible with Android OS, a lot of which are developed by Lotus themselves. So this is a lot of work crammed into a 4-year period, developmental phase. This is really something else. And it ties in very well with either the 15 or 23 speaker KEF audio system. Now, if you haven't heard of KEF, It's a British high-end hi-fi brand that is making its first foray into the automotive scene, and there's 23 speakers is really something else, and the subwoofer is built into this center console down here. The 15 speaker configuration has a slight tunnel for you to store some stuff, but the 23 speaker system is the one to go for. So make sure you opt for that because it sounds incredible. And I'm not kidding. Not kidding at all. One thing that's immediately noticeable for both the front driver and passenger is how much space you have in the footwell. In a traditional car, you have the gearbox bell housing that eats up either the left or the right side of the tunnel, and you don't have any of that here. It's just a flat floor and almost a 90-degree angle box here for your feet. It's just nice, the perks of an EV.
At the back, as you can see, it is mighty spacious. You have lots of leg room, shoulder room is good, and headroom is impeccable. I love it. Visibility is also great. The belt line or the windowsill is not very high up, and you get a decent view out. I really like it, and this sunroof is really doing it for me. Now, both versions, either the 4-seater or the 5-seater, will come with their own rear display. I am in the 5-seater in case you can't tell, and here is an 8-inch display. Now, the 4-seater version, which you might have already seen in Malaysia, comes with a 9-inch display that is right here where the center console is, and that's going to let you access to the air conditioning, the media, and I think that's pretty much it. Now, other things I want to bring to your attention are the finishes. So all the embellishes you see here are really nice. Some of the stainless steel they use are jewelry grade, and there are plasticized metal, but whatever that means also feels really good. So whatever Lotus is doing, keep doing it. I really like how premium this cabin feels. They've really pulled out all the stops here, going from making cars like the Elise to something completely unimaginable, maybe even 5 years ago. So this is really something else. Now, in terms of boot space, the 5-seater version, which we have here, is about 688 liters, and you can fold the bench for even more space. But if you opt for the 4-seat executive pack, that's going to reduce the space to 611 liters. And the downside to that is that you don't get to fold the rear seats. But the upside is, you look like a bossa. Yeah, so I guess it's time for a drive. Now, as you know, there are 3 variants of the Eletre on sale, and the one I am in right now is the middle one, the Eletre S, which is also the variant that I think most people will go for because it strikes a really good balance between range and power. Now, all 3 variants have 2 electric motors as standard. The Eletre R has a slightly powerful rear motor with a 2-speed gearbox, but this one, single speed for both the front and rear axle motors, and it makes about 603 horsepower and 710 Newton meters of torque. Those are numbers that are good enough for the 0 to 100 sprint in 4.5 seconds. So this car weighs slightly above 2.5 tons, and for it to do 4.5 seconds in the 0 to 100 benchmark sprint is quite something. But it's not just fast, as we'll find out in a bit. Now, regardless of which variant of the Eletre that you're going for, they all share the same 112 kilowatt hour battery pack. All 3 variants also get 22 kilowatt AC onboard charger as standard, so that is also good. And to fully charge the battery from 0 to 100 takes roughly about 6 hours, and that's of course if you have a 22 kilowatt AC charger at home lah. Here in the Eletre S, the battery pack gives around 600 kilometers of range, and in the Eletre R, it is slightly reduced to 490. And these are numbers that are based on the WLTP cycle. So give or take 5 to 10% on your daily drive. I've been driving this thing 1.5 days, and I'm averaging right around 22 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers. So not the best, but pretty efficient for an SUV of this size and weight. So I think it is also doing slightly better than the EQE. So that actually is saying something. So how does it feel to drive this behemoth of an SUV? If I can be honest, it actually is not intimidating at all, and we're driving on like really narrow Norwegian back roads. It doesn't feel intimidating, partly because of the rear wheel steering, and also visibility is incredible. You have this really chunky A pillars, but they don't really get in the way of your viewing. And the windows, you can sit really low, but where I am, visibility is great. Your B pillar is also not very intrusive, and I kind of like the seating position in this car. Very sporty for an SUV. Another thing I want to mention is rear wheel steering. Now this helps the car. This is a very long car, by the way. It's 5.1 meters long, and it does a really good job at making the car feel very compact and agile. And when you're driving at lower city speeds, the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction, so it reduces the turning angle of the car. And when you're driving at higher speeds, it will turn in the same directions. Another thing that I really like about the Eletre is this steering wheel. It is the first electromechanical rack for a Lotus, and it's still very communicative, very direct. There's still a lot of feedback. It's not as good as the Lotuses that we've sampled before, the Emira for example, but this is pretty damn good for a first electromechanical rack from Lotus. You can trust these guys to deliver in terms of driving feel and steering feedback, because they've been doing it for ages, and I really like it. They've done something really special here. Oh, another thing that I really like about this car is also the braking. And for some magical reason, the brakes actually don't really feel like an EV. As weird as that sounds, it feels like you're driving a normal car with no motors in the way. It feels very natural. It's very, very grabby. And it's so easy to modulate. You don't have to second guess how much pressure you need to depress the pedal to get the car to a stop. There's no one pedal driving per se in this EV. There are 3 different intensities of regenerative braking, but no one pedal driving. But that's okay, you know. It's nice to have, but I really don't mind, because hey, if I get a braking feel like this, I don't need one pedal driving, man. This is so fun to drive. Also, I like to point out that it's really quiet in here. You don't hear a lot of tire roar, you don't hear a lot of wind noise, and I think they've done a really good job with the aerodynamic, because for some reason, I don't hear wind noise at all, even when traveling up to 110 kilometers per hour. But the speed limit here in Norway is fairly, regulated and quite highly enforced. So I'm driving at the road that says 60 right now, and I really don't hear anything going. Sometimes it's so quiet that when the cars pass by, you don't hear the cars at all. And I think that's something else, for a car to be. It's got frameless doors. It's got so many things going, it's riding on 22, 23-inch wheels, but there's not a lot of noise. And there is something to be said about a company that has, for the longest time, been making stripped down, raw mechanical sports cars. And this is quite the departure. I honestly am lost for words, because I never expected this car to be so quiet. But it's one of the most impressive things about this car, and definitely better than the BMW iX, which a lot of people are upgrading from. Now, there is one thing I don't quite like about this car that I'm in, and that is the side camera instead of the side mirror. If you're a fan of all these tech gizmos and you really want this to be a party piece, you want to show off to your friends, I'll stop you right there and say, don't get it, get the side mirrors instead, because things might go wrong if you go with the side camera. Yeah, it's nice, it's cool, but it's here. The position of the camera feed is not ideal, because it's slightly lower than what I'm used to. Also, the viewing angle is quite limited because the camera does not move. Instead, it crops into the image, and then you can just, move the view around, but it's fairly limited. It's small. It's so much smaller than actual side mirrors. It's not very, it's quite high res for the panel itself, but a mirror would be slightly better. Yeah, so just take my word for it. Go for the side mirrors. Thank me later.
Unfortunately, I didn't get much of a seat time behind the wheel of the Eletre, which makes about 905 horsepower and nearly 1000 Newton meters of torque. But if you don't believe claims that it can do the 0 to 100 sprint in under 3 seconds, don't worry, it's been corroborated by other media or other publications. And I really am inclined to believe that it performs as such. However, I do have to say that acceleration didn't feel quite as violent as I thought it would be, but rather it's very progressive and linear, which are things that I quite admire for a high-performance car such as this.
There was also a makeshift slalom course on the airstrip, but that was about all we could do with the very limited time that we had on the airstrip. So here's to hoping that there will be a full-blown track day with the Eletre R in the near future. Sepang, perhaps?
So to answer the question earlier, yes, I really do think the Eletre has what it takes to propel Lotus back into superstardom. With the way things are going, I think Lotus is off to an incredible start with the Eletre, and I really cannot wait to see what comes next. It's a sedan, by the way. So that's been it for this quick review of the Eletre. Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and if you haven't liked and subscribed, be sure to do just that, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Till next time, bye-bye.